everybody, my name is Lena Unqua. Today we're going to be talking about seasons. So in our world, in like every single country, there's those 4 seasons that happen on an annual basis, right? Which are the spring, summer, winter, and fall. So yeah, those 4 seasons. And have you ever wondered what and why are there even existing these 4 seasons? Today we're going to be exploring about that. So it's all about the sun and the earth. So let's talk about it. We all know that the sun stays in one spot, right? So we're going to be talking about the earth movement. So remember, first you need to remind yourself that the earth has 2 main actions, which is rotation, which means that it will go around on its own axis, right? And it will have an action called revolving. Revolving means it goes around its orbits around the sun, and it usually takes 365.25 days to finish one orbit of it around the sun. Okay? And rotation is the action of rotating around its axis. From starting point to ending point, it takes 1 day, 24 hours, and that's what create day and night to our Earth too, through the moon and everything like that. So there comes those seasons that we have, right? But we need to remind ourselves that the Earth axis does not just stand straight. The Earth axis actually is tilted for a 23.5-degree angle. So it's going to be around something like this. And yeah, let me remind you, the Earth is going to rotate in this way. So that means that it's going to spin around in this rotation. And then it's going to revolve around the sun in these rotations too, whilst continuously rotating. So you see it's constantly changing, right? At one point it's like this. The sun is here, right? So it goes like this. And then it travels so that every side of it has a little bit of sunlight at one point, just like that. Okay, so if you want to know clearer about this, you could look online YouTube video how to demonstrate it. I'm not really good at demonstrating it, but if you have some previous knowledge about this, you will understand what I'm talking about. So a lot of people think that the seasons are caused because of how much sunlight is received, how close or far is the Earth is. But no, the Earth orbit is not too different. There won't be a big differences between the space from this to this. So that's not considered, right? What's considered is the tilted in angle. And remember, when it's tilted like this, then the northern hemisphere is leaning towards the sun, right? So for half a year, the north hemisphere will be pointing to the sun. So here's the sun. So here's the north hemisphere, and the south hemisphere will be way away, right? And for the other half, it's going to be far away, right? So that's it. But remember, the south part, it still doesn't receive as much, right? So the north hemisphere is leaning towards the sun for almost half a year. So that's why the north. So some people even think that it's because of the difference. But why? Because here, the northern hemisphere is leaning toward the sun, especially in January. But remember, January is the period where there comes spring, right? So that means that the season is not because of the distance, but because of the intensity of light and the length of day. So for what is intensity of light? When you travel through the orbit, remember the orbit of the Earth around the sun isn't an exact circle, right? Remember, the Earth itself, first, is not a completely round thing. And secondly, it is tilted in its axis. So that means that the intensity of light will have some varieties, changes. Not too big, but it will be enough for there to be a difference between temperature and sunlight received, right? Secondly is also the length of day, because usually when there are more time in the day, like when there's more daytime, then there will be more time for the light from the sun and the heat from the earth core itself to basically heat the earth atmosphere up. So the more daytime there is, the hotter the day will be, and vice versa. So now let's look at the 4 key seasons that we have in mind. First is the summer solstice. We call it summer, okay? We just call it summer for easier understanding. So summer is when the North Pole tilts the most to the sun. And that's when it's experienced the longest day. So here's the northern hemisphere and here's the sun. So usually when it comes to summer, it will be like this, right? And remember, it still rotates. So sometimes it could be like this. So yeah, remember it like that, right? And so it's when the North Pole tilts towards the sun the most. And not when it has the longest day in the year. And because of the longest day in the year, it's the hottest season in the year. Really simple, right? Moving on to winter solstice. Winter solstice is when the North Pole tilts away from the sun. So here's the Earth. So the North Pole, in that sense, it could be somewhat like this, right? Because again, the Earth has both rotation and revolution. So that is it. And so that is when the North Pole tilts away the most from the sun. And that drags it to have the shortest day, making it. And again, it's based on the length of the day. The longer the time is, the hotter it will be. So the shorter the time is, the colder it will be, right? So that's why winter is the coldest season. And then comes spring and fall equinox, which I'll call it spring and fall only. So these two actually have one part in common. Is that whenever it comes to the time for these two seasons, then the tilt is side to the sun. So for example, the tilt is like this. Right? And so at one point, it's going to be something like this. So it's going to face the sun like this, right? And so basically that means that in that sense, the sun is shining straight to the equator. So it's not shining to the north, nor shining too much on the south. It's shining equally on the equator, which is basically on like the very, very mid of the earth. So that's why you would have the daytime and nighttime to be equally, which is 12 hours each. And that is why in these two types of seasons, it's most likely that the weather won't be too cold or won't be too hot. But why is there still a difference between spring and fall, slightly in the temperature? It's because that when spring comes, then next it comes summer, right? So it's going to get partially affected. You notice how in the beginning of spring, which it faces winter, it's going to be colder, but it's going to be a little bit colder than when it's the end of spring and it's facing summertime, right? And the same thing happens with fall. In the very beginning of fall, it usually starts to get dry and usually starts to get hot because it's near summer. And then when it's the end of fall, that it goes and gets cooler and starts to prepare the cold of the winter. So that's why you see there's the difference between spring and fall in temperature, but still you could see that they have what's in common as the daytime and nighttime, which makes it to be pretty averagely the same temperature. So today we talk about season. We understand that season is because of the intensity of light and the length of day, and it is not just related to whether or not is the sun near the earth or the earth far away from the sun. So thank you for listening. Next time, if you ever notice the new season is coming, if it's getting hotter or colder, notice how long would the day be and how long would the night be. And when you see it in actual sense, you will understand this lesson even more. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.